The woman who knits her own cocoon, Esma Ocak. Hello friends, I am Esma Ocak. I am a writer. I was born in 1928 in Diyarbakir, which is famous for the Malabadi Bridge, and I spent my whole life in my hometown, which is very rich in history. I listened to the tales that traveled from mouth to mouth. I was very interested in reading. I learned to read when I was only 5 years old. It all started with my parents reading stories to me. As they read stories, I started to accompany them. At first they thought I was following pictures. Then my mother, realizing that I could actually read, called my father with surprise and joy and said, "Honey, can you take a look, am I seeing it wrong?" Of course. My father was as surprised as my mother. Maybe you won't believe it, but I made my first attempt at writing a novel when I was in middle school. But I didn't let anyone but my close friends read it. Writing may be genetic in our family. Esma Ocak Nakabaglu, a poet from Diyarbakir, was my uncle. Doesn't that sound nice? It was cool for me to have an uncle who was a poet. I memorized a lot of poems. I liked to recite poems in front of the mirror. Incidentally, the people at home started to get annoyed with me reciting so many poems. No matter how bored I got, I read poetry to my friends at school, but they didn't mind. I loved memorizing and reciting poems, and by the time I was an adult I had almost 3,000 poems in my memory. When my brother was in high school, he was sent to France to study law. This was a wonderful development, but I knew I would miss him very much. Friends, I was very lucky with my family. They loved me very much and supported me in everything. Also, my family was one of the wealthy and respected families in Diyarbakir. After I got married and started my own family, we moved to Kazansi village in Bismil. It was here that I laid the foundation for the good work I would do in reading and writing. Bismil is a beautiful district known for its halay. I listened to the tales, legends, and stories that are told here. I was very impressed by these narratives without realizing it. I learned Kurdish very well thanks to my curiosity. I lost my husband when I was only 33 years old. I had 3 children and we were very sad. Our neighbors never left us alone. We had a beautiful farm, and when I lost my husband, I took over. I took care of my children and our farm. I took over the house and gardening, but I did not give up reading and writing. During the day, I worked in the garden, and in the evenings, I would work on the lives of the village women. I listened to their stories. I cannot deny the contribution of what I listened to the works I wrote. My first storybook was Burdal. I wrote my first storybook, Burdal, with what I heard from village women. I was able to publish this book thanks to the encouragement of my fellow countrymen, the poet Ahmed Arif. In Burdal, I tried to hold up a mirror to the problems faced by mothers and daughters at that time and in earlier times. I hope these problems have completely disappeared in your day. This book has been very lucky for me. Director Atif Yilmaz adapted my book to the cinema in 1990. Imagine watching the book you wrote in the cinema. Burdal won an award at the Berlin Film Festival the following year. It also received awards in 7 other countries. Then it was translated into German. My stories, Burdal and Yeni Kardak, were also adapted for the theater. This was a very nice feeling. If you have watched theater at your school or had the chance to act in theater, you know how I feel. If you haven't had a chance to watch or play it yet, don't worry, it is not impossible. With the help of your teacher, you can create your own theater play. You can play. I was introduced to theater at a very late age. Dear children, I have written more than 10 books in my life as a writer, but wait, you don't know my craziness yet. One of the craziest things I have ever done in my life was to learn how to use a computer at the age of 75. I can see that you are surprised. I would have been surprised too. I had my glasses on all day, my fingers tapping away at the keys. People would come to my house and say, "What are you going to do after learning how to use a computer at your age?" As you know, there is no age for learning. Learning how to use a computer was a bit difficult, but it helped me a lot in writing my articles. Those who made fun of me while I was learning later admired me. After that, writing was much easier. I also wrote the book, The Private Life of a Philosopher, in which I wrote about the life of the writer Esma Ocak. I have always cared about and tried to preserve the culture of the place where I was born and raised, the beautiful Diyarbakir. For this reason, for a while I was the president of the Diyarbakir Promotion, Culture and Solidarity Foundation. I bought an old Armenian house and restored it. My aim was to keep the culture of old Diyarbakir houses alive. Today, this house welcomes guests who are interested in culture like me as Esma Ocak House. If you have not been to this beautiful house, I recommend you to go and see it as soon as possible. Friends, my interest in oral literature has never waned. My horse gave me this continuity. Do you know how to ride a horse? I learned it very well. So I can say that my horse also contributed a lot to my becoming a writer. There is no clock for a horseman. I would get on my horse and travel from village to village, transcribing the oral literature that the people told me. I was always attracted to the hard work and labor of women and their life stories. I always mentioned them in my writings. While researching oral literature, I collected the stories I heard from Dengbejis in the book, News Gurku Destiny. Have you had the chance to listen to or read an epic before? If not, I suggest you look into it as soon as possible.